Yes,
Yes, the call out of that.
Hello.
Hello,
Hey, Jim.
Hey, Jim.
can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, good.
Are we ready to go? All right. Let's call the July 12th meeting of the Duluth CSD Engineering Committee to order. And for committee members, we have Robert sitting in for Rawson today.
Correct.
And Bowman is here. Any public comments today?
No.
No, okay. So we're through that. We did not have a meeting last month because of the schedule, but we do have the minutes from the May meeting here. Any questions or changes for those?
No.
Okay, let's approve those as they are. So the first item really is Buena Vista reconstruction, as always.
Yes. Yeah, it's been on there for a while, and it's unfortunately a lot of the same story still. The good thing I talked about, we have the CDFW and the Water Regional Board. The good thing about them is because they're state or California, they're held to the deadlines. But the tough part with the Corps right now is they are US, so they're just based on, they really don't have that exact timeline that everything's going. But right now, I had talked with Jim about this in the past, and we're just getting fed up even more as we go along. So we are actually going to try and contact Ward, the legal counsel, and see if he can just look for any kind of article that could help us, or see if he can reach out to any of his contacts that maybe light some fire that we couldn't light, maybe. And we're gonna at least go for that. But it's getting to the point where it's getting frustrating where we can't get a simple task done. I mean, it's even taking longer than the first one. And I think it's because they must have something else going on. I know the guy was out of town for like 2 months.
Yeah,
that was one of our guys. So we're trying to, we're pushing along. We're sending updates. And I have been, I've been responding to them. They've actually just 3 weeks ago, they asked for more information. I provided them the information just on, they haven't given me an indication that anything's going wrong. It's just processing everything and waiting on timeline. So again, I don't have any update on the environmental status besides that right there, unfortunately. So we'll just.
The revised contract is still good for.
The revised contract is still good as of now. And it's still good for the 180 days, which was the original time frame. So it should be under that. So I'm not worried about that right now, but we are, and Jim and I talked about this, and we're approaching the rainy season coming in October, which did create a challenge in Sandia Creek. So it's something to consider if we want to continue to do this in the rainy season or for the next one. I don't know if we're going to do this till next meeting, but and Jim can chime in if I don't want to talk out of turn with anything, Jim. But that's kind of the decision we need to make, because it is a little more. There's more storm water to convey and bypass systems that are necessary when you do build in the rainy season, albeit it is California. It's never a really heavy rainy system. We're not somewhere like Florida where we're going to get a heavy one, but it is more of a risk factor to do it in the rainy season, which we're hoping to get that done. And in all reality, if we don't get it done this board meeting, it goes out 2 months, which puts us right in the rainy season. So that's a decision that does need to be made, I guess, and something to consider as we move forward. I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add to that, Jim, or if you can hear us correctly.
No, I think you covered it pretty well. We're really at the desperation point here. We've got all our permits, but Army Corps, and they're the worst, just traditionally, historically, whatever you want to call it. But I mean, enough's enough with these guys. But I haven't talked to him. Maybe I'll give him a call later today, Ward, to see if maybe through their law firm they can't get somebody to make some calls or something. So they're just sitting on it. It's the old COVID excuse, but time's a ticking here. And if we don't get started in the next month or so, we're into the rain. So anyway, I've kind of been leaning on Ron and his people pretty hard, and I see where they're at. They're just getting nowhere. So we're gonna hopefully by next meeting we're gonna have this thing rolling, and about time to pull another rabbit out of a hat here. Just don't know which hat to pull. So that's kind of where we're at.
Have you had any conversations with the contractor on their feeling about the rainy season, how much of an impact they think they?
Not necessarily on that. I guess it's the first, I wanted to discuss with the committee first that we were to discuss on that. But you know, we do, because of what happened in the last one, we put a specific bid item in for a bypass system,
Right.
pumps and little items like that. So we do have a bid on that this time, where last time it was pushed back in the rain season, we didn't have that. So at least we have that kind of negotiated as needed, we're ready. But you know, I have not had that specific conversation yet, because I was hoping to get everything done first, but that is a conversation I'm willing to have with them.
Yeah, I think before we make a decision here, we're gonna have input from them to see what they think the impact would be and the risk factors.
We'll do it. We can do that right now, and I'll have a conversation, and maybe I can even talk to as a sidebar at the board meeting about what I find out.
And the last couple of meetings here in the committee and also in the general board meeting, we had a conversation about some of the materials, particularly the long lead pipe material, and looking at buying that outside of the contract. Is there anything happened on that? Any conversations?
I have had trouble getting the specific language necessary for that. My concern is I don't want them pointing the finger at us saying that we bought the wrong thing, or if they're taking on liability that wasn't in the original contract. You know, if that was the original, we can easily say furnished by the district. But you know, and I should have had this worked out by now. I will. So I can. I'm still working to get that. I've been focusing on environmental now.
We're not necessarily trying to reduce the cost by taking that out of the contract and doing it outside on our own. We're looking at reducing the schedule so we don't end up with a schedule impact from not having it when we need it. So you might include that in the conversation and a compromise of some sort where either they would buy it and we would assume liability in some form, or we would buy it and hold it, whatever. But the real concern is that we'll be ready to do the job and we won't have the materials that we need to do it.
Understood. So yes, I'll have that whole conversation with them next week.
Okay. Any other comments, Jim or Debbie?
No, we'll follow up on that, on those two items.
Okay. All right, on the roadway rehab that we've talked about the last couple of sessions, any inputs on that, or what's your view of that at the moment?
Yeah, so basically, per our last meeting, I think we discussed we were going full speed ahead with at least getting the plans ready. I think it was even you that said, you know, construction costs aren't going to go down anytime. I mean, they may dip a little bit, but so under that impression, we have created this right here is the full plan set right now. So as far as we're on schedule to, you know, this is the final plans right here, so we can take this to the next board and ask for permission to go to bid on that, or we can hold it. But right now, I know it'd be good to get a good bid price and see if this is something we would want to pursue. And honestly speaking, looking at the timeline now, if with the board, I'm just going to spell out the timeline of the best case scenario. So July 20th is the board meeting. I get the approval from the board on the plans to bid. Then I can take it to bid the next week. The only unfortunate thing is this next committee meeting is one of those months where the Wednesday is the first day of the month. So if we were to take it to advertisement directly after the board meeting, it would only be 3 weeks of advertisement, which would not be really a full advertisement period. So it would, typically we do 4 weeks minimum to give them enough time to investigate the site, and then have also a non-mandatory pre-bid conference to show them the site. So even if we do approve these plans, it would be looking at accepting bids probably in September. To get going, which would mean shortly thereafter proceeding to construction.
is there
Yeah,
a method to solve both of those issues, get started earlier, like a special session or something of that nature, just to look at the bids?
yeah, we can do that. But now, Ron, I thought that was the plan. I
That was
didn't
the
think
plan.
we were going in August, but it would be on the September agenda for approval to go
Correct.
for the bid itself. So I think your timeline's all right.
Yeah,
Because
that's what I
it's
just wanted to
2
convey the
months.
timeline. I'm sorry if I presented it as something different. I
Yeah,
guess,
I don't think it's a problem. As I was listening to you, I'm like, wait, what? What are you talking about? Because my plan is that the approval of the contract would be at the September meeting.
correct.
So that's why I was pushing to make sure you got these plans finished for this meeting, which then if the committee gives the go ahead, we have the resolution to go out to bid
Correct.
a week from now, at the board meeting. And then it usually, we can't get all that done in 1 month. So it's always the second month. So you would give the bidders till, I don't know, late August probably.
Probably usually a week before the committee meeting is when I like to have the bids in.
Yeah,
so
so about the first or last week of August, let's say. Then that gives you time to do your bid analysis and all that. And then have committee meeting in September on the board agenda. And then we award the contract and get them started right after that.
Correct. Yes, and I apologize. I think you phrased it a lot better. I phrased it as something different, but that was the plan the whole time. So I appreciate
Yeah, okay.
you speaking more eloquently than me.
Well, okay, sorry. You scared me there for a minute.
No.
How did we do that? Because I know it takes, there's a 2-month period between this meeting and today and, getting these guys hired and rolling.
Correct.
So we're okay.
Thank you for that.
We had a
Hey,
priority
I have a
list.
question though. Have those plans changed since like the last meeting 2 months ago?
They have not. The limits are the same. We've had our field inspections, nothing unexpected. As we've talked about, Avenida del Oro is that's one of the most used roads there.
That's
So there's
been added, right?
that is in there. Yes, that was in there at the beginning. So we had that
Okay.
one in there. So yes, we had our field inspector out
Okay.
there walking.
I'm
and
just
everything.
checking because I see the plans there on your table, but I
Correct.
can't read them. I want to make sure it's the same.
As Jim said, a few months ago, we had a priority list that you were following, I think, for which ones, and of course, we're limited by budget.
Correct.
And so there's a little bit of a catch-22 here in that you don't know what the available funds are until you get the bids back and we see how that fits against the budget. So I presume that we're having enough bidding done that we can get beyond our limit. And if available, do the most that we have access to.
Correct. So I'll give you a little insight on what we did last year, basically. So last year we had that same thing arise. We were fortunate enough that the bids came in lower. What we do is, and when we're bidding this out, we have what we call bid schedules. So we have bid schedule A, which is the base bid. And that came in last year a little lower, but we anticipated that might happen. So what we did was we made a bid schedule B, which was called optional, depending on funding, and we added an extra 210, what we call ELT, equivalent linear ton. And we add that basically to the bid as an option, and they give us a price right there, and then we can add as much of that as we want to that bid to stay under our budget. So that'll give us the flexibility to work on that. And the best part about that is they can get started on the original bid. And then while that's going on, we can have our inspector go out and mark out the full dig out areas and inspect it just like you would in design.
Right.
And it's kind of like turned into a design build almost.
There hasn't been anything show up in the day-to-day work that gives the priority list a different twist than we had before.
Not at all. Delaware was definitely priority.
Yeah. I mean, honestly speaking, that was a candidate for full payment, but we're trying to make the best out of what we have right now. So, we were still going to do a slurry to at least get that up to shape right now.
Okay, good. Looks like the next item is the traffic and enforcement, the review from Broncho Road issues that we were looking at.
Yeah, we have a good little presentation here that kind of outlines some of the data analysis and other 2 or 3 things that have been going on in the meantime.
And the analysis takes into account the changes since the gate closed a few days ago. Or is any of that rolled into it?
No.
No, still
Okay.
labor. Yeah.
So, Jessica, you bring that up and I'll talk to them anytime, but, the county, as you know, Surreyfield, Rancho Cal, they put their RPMs down and I got, so we're finally done with that. We've, you can skip that, you can skip that. So we did review Corte Bonita and Carancho and stuff and, wanted to make sure that, we did as best we can to identify what the issues could be, if any,
Mhm.
and stuff like that. And then, of course, Justin got the stop sign in of the crews and stuff like that. So going to the study, the request was for a flashing red light or yellow light or something type of thing to alert people to the fact that there's a street coming up. Okay. We adopted a speed limit out there, as you know, Carancho for 40 miles an hour. But most of the curves out there are posted for 25 or 30 miles per hour. And then those are advisory speeds, those aren't regulatory speeds, but there's advisory speeds. As you're approaching Corte Bonita, going westbound, heading out towards the end of the road, you have a 30-mile-an-hour curve to the left, you have a 30-mile-an-hour crest to go over, then you have a 30-mile-an-hour right-hand turn just before you get to Corte Bonita. But that is still about 300 feet away from that last curve. Corte Bonita is about 300 feet away from the last curve. I sampled the approaching speeds during the peak hour, 4:30 to 5, because that's kind of when the most cars are going to be there, if any, because not a lot of cars on that road to begin with. And the average speed going westbound was just under 30 miles an hour. The 25-mile-an-hour curve, there is a 25-mile-an-hour curve and an 18% grade uphill as you just get past Corte Bonita. So one of the complaints the resident said was that they're trying to accelerate up that hill, so they're flying by Corte Bonita to get up that steep grade. But what I measured there just in this small sample was that they're not flying by at that point, not at Corte Bonita. These speeds are right when they cross Corte Bonita.
Mhm.
Then coming eastbound, you're coming down that 18% grade. You've got the same 25-mile-an-hour curve. You got to go slow down for the 25-mile-an-hour curve before you get to Corte Bonita. And eastbound, there's a good sight distance of about 500 feet. So there's plenty of time to see a car approaching in that respect. Those speeds were sampled, and of course, they're a little higher. They're about 35 miles per hour because they're coming down the hill.
Mhm.
And there is that 30-mile-an-hour per curve just as you pass Corte Bonita. So they're coming down the hill, so say 35, but they're slowing down because they got to get to, most of the vehicles are riding the brakes to come down the hill. To keep it, and then they go into that 30-mile-an-hour curve. So what are our options? We had a total of 26 vehicles that we sampled in that 30-minute peak, so about 1 a minute, you can see. So that tells you there's plenty of gaps. If you're sitting there waiting to make a left-hand turn and a car is coming down the hill, it's going to take, 8-10 seconds for it to pass. Then you got to, virtually almost a full minute to make your left-hand turn without having to worry about a second car coming down. It's pretty easy to do that. The highest speed that I recorded in that period was 44 coming down in the eastbound direction and 35 going up. So not excessively high for a 40-mile-an-hour street, My thought is that what you could do is you can place an intersection ahead sign, the one with the T, that shows that the sign is coming up on the left. And we could supplement it with the supplemental plate with Corte Bonita on it. So that it clearly identifies to people that there's a street coming up, not just a driveway or not just, that kind of thing like that, but that. And then of course, we can always potentially the sheriff or CHP randomly monitor the speeds coming down the hill if that, seems to be an ongoing issue.
And while you're finding it, doesn't seem like there's a lot of demand. It's sounding like it, other than perhaps having the cautionary sign, isn't a tremendous issue.
Right. I mean, I don't think this is any more
than many
Then,
other.
then the rest of the ones along, I mean, that street is littered with intersections and signs.
Right.
Like, I don't see this one standing out any different. I mean, the one difference only would be is that there is 18% grade that much of the area crunch doesn't have. But because the curve is a 25-mile-an-hour curve just before Corte Bonita and a 30-mile-an-hour curve just after Corte Bonita, the actual speeds they're going by at Corte Bonita are, you know, in this case, under the speed limit, you know, so it's like they're not, it's not like they're coming 50 or 60 down that hill, because they'd be going off into the bushes, you know, so like that. So I think this would be a good start. I don't think you want to put flashing lights and things like that in. That's real expensive. It's tough to maintain. They get vandalized, people stolen, because flashing lights look good, really good as a kid's bedroom, in our garage, or, you know, it's that kind of, it's the kind of things you just, you know, I don't think you want to open the door unless there was a documented accident history or something like that that would say that, hey, this is really critical, because there's very few cars going in and out of Puerto Bonita. It's only got a half a dozen, 10 homes or so down there. So the number of cars coming in and out there is pretty small, you know. And
What's the cost of the district to put a sign like that up?
36-inch sign, well, you got to pay about $75 or probably 100, yeah. So $100, and then the supplemental one, maybe another 50 a year time. So under $200.
Sounds like a reasonable kind of a trade-off between doing something for the folks there that are concerned and spending more you know, more funds and work than it might really deserve. So to do that, Jim, would we need to bring a recommendation to the board, or is that something we can just go forward with?
Steve, that's an advisory sign, I think, right? And is that what they classify it as?
Yes.
Does that, I can't remember. Does that take a resolution? A board resolution?
Does it take a resolution?
I don't believe so. No. Advisory signs, no. So, you know, it's
Okay,
not,
well,
it's not an ordinance or that, so.
No, I can't remember ever doing it. So
Yeah.
anyway, what you could do if the committee agrees, and it's your recommendation as the traffic engineer, just so that it gets into the record, perhaps the committee could note that in their report at the board meeting.
Right.
That the committee reviewed it and based on the recommendation, staff's gonna just install the sign, and then we have it in the minutes. And
Is it appropriate to ask for a full board approval, or just
I think I would
that-
just put it into
Put it in
your report,
Yeah.
Committee report, yeah.
and then make sure that Jessica puts it in there. And that way, someday if we're researching, well, where did this sign come from? You know, we can look it up, you know. And but no, I don't think it takes a board approval. But you know, I think the board should know. And if somebody objected during your report, then you know you could deal with it right then. So I that's my recommendation.
I agree, Jim. I think that's the way to go, because this is not a regulatory sign. This is just an advisory. Also, for the board report, do you want me to remove this from it's coming up as a committee report, or you want me to
Well, let's see. Yeah, good point.
go
Kind of
through
got
it?
two reports going at one time here. Well, you know what you should do, perhaps. Why don't, Steve, in your report, because you've got all this data and all, that really, you know, you should tell the board, I think.
Yeah.
So why don't you put it in your report, and then but stop after you've introduced it, and let's have Chuck as the committee kind of give that portion of the committee report. You know, just say the committee reviewed this, and whatever
Okay, sure.
Chuck would normally say, you know, and then just kind of fit it in there, and then it's all in one little package, because it's possible. Steve, have you heard from this resident that wrote the letter or the email? Uh-oh, did I lose you?
Have we heard from them since? No.
No, have you talked to the
Can hear you,
resident
Jim. Not sure if you,
direct? Have you talked to the
No.
resident? Because it's possible that a resident might come to the meeting and want to talk about it. So I think I'd do it the way I'm suggesting is in your traffic report. Introduce the item and then ask the committee to make a report at that time on this, just this item. So Chuck could then, you stop, and then Chuck could say, I'm just making this up, Chuck, but it's like, we met with Steve and the staff and the committee and reviewed it, blah, blah, blah. And, we think that this is a good idea. It really doesn't take board approval. It's advisory side, blah, blah, blah. But they're going to put it in or something like that. And then if the resident is there, they might want to say something at that point.
Okay.
I don't know. I'd make it the smoothest, I think.
So that sounds pretty easy. We could just change the recommendation that, we present it to the committee, and then that would be the introduction for Chuck.
Yeah.
And I could just take our recommendation out of it at that point, and he can go ahead and say, here's what we think we'll do it for now. Okay. Very good.
And are we prepared to recommend that we go forward with that?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so both,
Very easy
for
and
record,
straightforward.
both Roberts and both.
Yep.
Approved that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, field crew.
Alrighty, I have a little presentation for you all today. Water. Are you good here?
You're fine.
Okay. So the project's been completed. Half of the road was essentially repaved. They did an overlay on most of it. The sections that were not completed, we had them repaired with a little bit of persuasion to the contractor. Noted that in our code it does state that tracked equipment has to have rubber pads, and they were not using rubber pads on their equipment. So it damaged quite a bit of our adjacent asphalt. So we were able to convince them to slurry it back to original, which the parts that they didn't pave. So that's now been completed, and we're just waiting on striping to finalize El Calamar. And we had that project on via Yerba. It was 3 36-inch culverts, that 2 of which were heavily damaged. The bottom portions of the pipe had completely disappeared, and 1 pipe was clogged. So what we did is, in advance to hopefully dissolute some of this erosion and further damage of the pipes, we cleaned out the inlets and the outlets, both sides. And in 2 of the pipes, we had put in new HDPE culvert, and we had pushed it through. This will allow it so that the water has a place to flow and it doesn't continue to erode the original pipe. We also placed concrete inside those pipes too to fill the voids that were already created. And there was 1 pipe that was still good, so we were able to clean that out and then remove all the sediment blocking it. Next slide. Just using, this is the pipe that was decent enough that we were able to clean it out. We're using high pressure water trailer to blow out some of this pipe. Ended up having to actually crawl in there and rip out some of the roots because there was a tree growing into it. So this project's pretty much completed now. Next slide. Hopefully with the rainy season, it will hold up well. I believe it will. We had a patch on Carancha that was done previously in the left-hand photo. It had already been done last year. This area just gets a lot of water, and it had started to settle again. We had a contractor come out that night to do it. Unfortunately, we couldn't wait till the morning or the next day, just because of how much it was settling and motorcycles and things like that passing by. Definitely wanted to be very as fast as possible. So they removed the asphalt portion and replaced essentially a whole lane with it, and it's the sediment in that area is very saturated. I think that's probably a lot of the damage that comes from that area in Carancho, specifically from people watering or overwatering their shrubs. I think that you should try to persuade people, just because this is what happens when they water too much. This whole section of roadway actually really needs to be updated. But that was handled that night, and it's holding up well so far. Next slide. On La Cruz, we had the stop sign install. We had it the same day that they did the paint, we had installed the sign, so that's them installing the after to stop ahead. And here we have installed, this is what the final product looks like, the stop signs and stop bars.
The signs were actually pushed down at one point, saw it going by. Was that, I assume that was a deliberate act, somebody put the post and bent it over?
Yeah, so what they actually did is they had ripped them off, they had broken them and thrown them off to the side. They didn't keep them luckily, so we were able to reuse the stop signs. That was nice of them. But yes, so I just believe that it was a deliberate act, probably.
Yeah, someone was unhappy with the new sign.
Yeah, during the install, we had, when we were reinstalling them, we had somebody drive by to explain their upsetness for it. I'm sure that was probably the individual. Next slide. That's it. So other than that, as far as the update on just regular activities, we're just continuing with tree work and mainly weed abatement, stuff like that we can do by hand.
Any word on the new machine?
That was coming up next. So I'm fighting really hard to get the new machine because I really want it to be here before the rainy season.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's our busiest season. And I'm doing my salesman's work for him. I'm trying really hard to get us at least a used skid steer, something that's got low hours that we can get sooner, because the deadline is December, but now they're saying it could be even in February or March.
Wow.
So I'm trying to.
How are we doing on the free rental hours?
We're pretty much tied up, I'd say, just because of the fact that we use a lot for just our mowing and all that stuff. It took a lot of it.
Yeah.
But I think within the next couple of weeks here, we're gonna have our skid steer. So
That'd be great.
that'd be great.
Yeah. Okay. On item H, I don't have anything on that. Jim, do you have anything?
Well, that's usually, my report. But I mean, if we jump back to the last report, I'm sitting here in my car, barely see the screen is so small, but I heard it all. And I think I can identify each of you, but Dustin, I can, that orange shirt, that's really where it's at, Dustin. Anyway, it just struck me that 3 years ago, neither committee members were on the board. And 3 years ago, I would never, ever have predicted what I just witnessed. The report Dustin gave. We didn't do pipes 3 years ago. We didn't even contract out pipes 3 years ago. And it just struck me how far we've come since Dustin joined our organization here. And we really are making unbelievable progress that could not have been predicted 3 years ago. And not only is Dustin excellent at what he does and what he knows, but now he's getting a crew that is similar to him. and they can really attack these projects. And it's amazing we haven't had more cave-ins. And here we've prevented another one from happening. So I just kind of I just wanted to point that out because I just kind of forgot about it. As I'm listening to him speak, then I'm kind of, my mind's drifting backward in time. And anyway, so the forward progressing movement is here now. So I just wanted to point that out.
And it's good to be where we are.
Absolutely, yeah, we're really moving forward now. So I apologize. I'm on the screen this time, but I'm at the ESRI conference, and I don't think I reported on it at the board meeting. And after Debbie came back, I forgot to tell her, what this is about. But Debbie, this is well, just to back up, ESRI is the first company in time that took satellite data and made it usable through devices. First with the computer, now it's clear down to our cell phone. And it powers your Google Maps, it powers, when you ride an Uber, it powers everything nowadays. And they're a huge worldwide company based in Redlands, California, because the person who started it, who's now, I Googled him, he's worth anywhere between 10 and 20 billion. And he is a graduate of Cal Poly Pomona and just twigged onto this. He was in geography and mapping and things like that, and somehow put this whole thing together. Anyway, we became their customer when we decided to use GIS to, which is a geographic information system, to run our operations. In fact, most of our operations within the next few years will be in a GIS environment. Only the administrative financial stuff won't be. So anyway, we're a customer of ESRI, and we're probably the smallest customer. And in the last few days, we've joked about it. And I got to meet and talk with the owner of ESRI on Sunday, because I got a special scholarship to come Sunday and spend the day with the owner of ESRI. And I joke with them, I know why I got to come here, because I'm the smallest customer you have. And but Google's there, Microsoft's there. It was unbelievable, and I'll tell you guys a little bit more about it. It was, and he picked up everything. So I'm here. This is a $2,000 conference, and I'm free. So I don't know how this happened, but and then because they invited me, all the people that built our system, they got to come too. So, and you had to be nominated, and the executives of ESRI picked the 300 people. And it was kind of funny because I'm sitting there, they just had you at round tables so that everybody could mingle and all. And I'm sitting there, and I said, well, hi, how you doing? Where are you from? He goes, Scotland. And I'm, oh, Scotland. Oh, yeah, whatever. And then a few minutes later, they start talking about the UK and how the UK has adopted GIS and they've hired ESRI. And then all of a sudden the guy stands up and goes up to the podium, and he's the head of GIS for the entire Great Britain, United Kingdom, and works for the Secretary of State. And so he was showing all the steps it's taken to create a GIS system for the United Kingdom. And I was just blown away because his slide up on the screen, it's like, I saw that 2 years ago, because when I said to them, build us a system, all of those steps are precisely the same. And we went through them, and that little tablet that the crew carries with them in their truck every day is exactly the same system that the entire UK government operates on now. But so anyway, when he came back and sat down, then we started chatting, and I said, "Well, you're one of the bigger customers, and I'm the smallest in the room." And we went through exactly those same steps. And he says, "You know, it really doesn't matter how big you are. You have to. That's exactly how you do it." And that's so. I think we've got a darn good system. And Will Dan sent Rex Miller, and I hang out with him, and because I don't understand any of this stuff, but he's here, and he's really, I didn't know, I mean, I knew it was good, but he's really well respected in this crowd. So it's kind of been like the first week in college. You don't know your way around. You're intimidated by everybody. You don't know who you're talking to. But boy, what a scholarship this has been. So anyway, I'll kind of summarize it down for the board meeting, but that's what I'm up to this week. And I thought, well, if I don't like it, I'll just go home. But I think I'm staying the whole time.
It's very likely that it's successful around the world because it's successful for operations like this. It's something people really need.
Absolutely.
And, system's done a fantastic job here.
It really has. And now my brain's been running wild, and I would keep talking to Rex, you know, there's so much more we can do with this. So our whole operation is going to be the GIS. We'll have a different system for like accounting, but it's all going to be geography based because that's what we do. And so yeah, you just happen into things. It's amazing in life. But that's what I'm up to. There's one more thing I need to talk to the two, well, everyone really. Perhaps we should adjourn the meeting, and then I just have some
We're just
administrative
at that
things I
point.
need to mention.
Are there any comments from the committee or attendees? The meeting is adjourned.
Jessica, is the meeting over as far as the video?
No.
Please stop it.